Welcome. Today we are diving deep into leadership. But we're not talking about the kind of leadership that just comes with a fancy job title. We're talking about the real deal, the kind that gets things done and inspires some pretty incredible change.
This quote really nails it, doesn't it? It basically draws a line in the sand between being a manager and being a leader. It suggests they're not the same thing at all. So what's the actual difference? And more importantly, how can you be both?
To figure that out, we're going to look at a truly amazing story. I know, it sounds like the setup to a joke, but the career of a woman named Kat Cole is basically the perfect roadmap for understanding how someone can go from having zero authority to leading a huge global company. All right, so let's rewind and go right to the beginning of her story. Because it's in these early days, these small moments, that you can see the first real hints of what leadership actually looks like in practice. Okay, so think about this for a second. The kitchen just implodes, right? The staff walks out. And Kat, a 17-year-old waitress with literally no authority, just steps in and starts cooking. But why? Not for a promotion, not to get noticed by the boss. She said she did it simply because she wanted to be helpful. That's it. It wasn't about power, it was about jumping in and solving a problem right in front of her.
And that right there, that simple act, it's the perfect way to understand the big question we're asking today. Was that an act of management? Or was it an act of leadership? This is where we start to pull apart the job title from the actual behavior. So on one hand, you've got management. Think of it as the how. It's the nuts and bolts, planning, organizing, making sure the trains run on time. It's about control. Then you have leadership. That's the why and the where. It's about creating a vision for the future, getting people excited about it, and inspiring them to make it happen. They're two totally different skill sets, even though they can sometimes overlap.
Here's a really simple analogy that makes this crystal clear. A hospital's chief of staff, that's a manager. They have the formal role, the authority, the title. But an ER nurse in the middle of a chaotic crisis who just takes charge, directs people, and brings order to the chaos, that person is a leader. See the difference? One's a position, the other is an action.
Okay, so if leadership is all about action, about influencing people, what's the engine behind it? Well, it all comes down to power. But I'm not talking about the power that comes from a title. Let's open up the leader's toolkit and see where real influence actually comes from.
And here's the thing. Influence isn't some kind of magic trick. It's a skill. And it's built on count them, 5 different sources of power. If you can understand these, you can learn to lead effectively, whether you have a title or not. Let's break them down. First up, you've got legitimate power. This is the obvious one, right? It's the power that comes with the corner office, the title on your business card. It's formal authority. And while it's definitely real, if that's all you rely on, you're just a manager. Real leadership needs more. Next, there's reward power. This is your ability to give people things they value. Sure, it can mean a bonus or a raise, but you can use this kind of power every single day. A simple, genuine, great job in front of the team, that's reward power in action.
Then you have the flip side of that coin, coercive power. This is the my way or the highway approach. It's leading through fear and punishment. And let's be real, it might work in the short term, but it absolutely crushes loyalty and trust. Great leaders almost never have to touch this stuff.
Okay, now we're getting into the really powerful stuff, the personal types of power. First is referent power. This is all about charisma, respect, and admiration. It's when people follow you not because they have to, but because they want to. You earn this through your character and integrity.
And last but not least, we have expert power. This is the power you get from just knowing your stuff, from being really, really good at what you do. You become the person everyone turns to when they're stuck because you have the skills and the knowledge to help. So let's bring this all back to Kat Cole. She didn't walk in on day one with a big title and legitimate power. Nope. She started by building her expert power, jumping into the kitchen, learning every job she could. Then, because she was so competent and genuinely helpful, she built referent power. People respected her and wanted to work with her. The legitimate power, the promotions and official titles, that came way, way later, as a direct result of the influence she had already built from the ground up. All right, so we get what leadership is, and we know where the power comes from. But that leads to the next big question, right? Is there one best way to lead? For decades, this was the million-dollar question researchers were trying to answer. Our whole way of thinking about this has changed so much over time. Back in the early 1900s, it was all about the trait approach, the idea that great leaders were just born different, maybe smarter or taller. When that didn't really pan out, we moved to the behavioral approach, focusing on what great leaders actually do. And now we've landed on something much more flexible, the situational approach. The idea here is that the best leaders are like chameleons. They adapt their style to fit the people and the problem in front of them.
And that idea, that the situation matters, really opens up some cool, dynamic ways of thinking about leadership. One of the biggest is called transformational leadership. This isn't about just keeping things running. It's about creating a totally different future.
So this really highlights two different modes of operating. You've got what's called transactional leadership. Think of this as the day-to-day, assigning work, checking performance, keeping things on track. It's essential maintenance. But then you've got transformational leadership. This is the big picture stuff. It's seeing that a change is needed, creating an exciting vision of the future, and then getting everyone on board to make it happen.
And a huge piece of that puzzle is charisma. But charisma isn't some magical quality you're born with. It's actually something you can break down into 3 key actions. First, you envision a better future and set the bar high. Second, you energize people with your own genuine excitement. And third, you enable them. You support them, you listen to them, and you show them you believe in them.
So we've gone through a lot here, right? We've talked about managers versus leaders, the 5 sources of power, different styles, but it all boils down to one final really important question. What does any of this actually mean for you?
When you look at Kat Cole's story, the biggest takeaway is this. Leadership is not a job title. It's not something someone gives you when you get promoted. It's something you do. It's a set of skills you build and actions you take every single day, in big moments and small ones.
At the end of the day, leadership isn't a title you hang on the wall. It's a choice you make over and over again. It's an action. So the real question isn't whether you have the title, it's what choice you're going to make today. Thanks for watching.